Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to Aesthetic Imaging Video Tutorials. Today we're going to be covering one of my favorite subjects, which is parallaxing, also known as the 2.5D effect. So what is parallaxing? I guess the most basic explanation could be is that you're taking two-dimensional images and you're kind of arranging them on a 3D space, and then moving a camera around. But you can also animate your different subjects. All right, so in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to create this image. All right, and then we also have our second example. And then we have our third example right here, which is the iconic, no, you weren't supposed to see that. Oh, go away, shut it down. All right, and so for our third example, we have the iconic John Young jumping and saluting the flag. All right, so let's get started right away. All right, I'm going to close these out. We're going to right click in our project window. We're going to go import file. And here we have a whole bunch of photos that I have done up. Which, by the way, the original images you can actually pick up on the NASA website. Fair bit of warning, the prices are astronomical. I apologize for that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to select, for me, it's going to be this one, the shuttle launch on the moon, and space bubble. So before we hit open over here, we're going to go to import as, and we're going to change this to composition, retain layer sizes. Hit open, and here we are. Now, see what that has done is it has added our Photoshop document as separate layers in a folder, and it's also created a composition for us. So we're going to open up the first one, Shuttle Launch, and here we have our image. And as you can see, it's made up. Here's the just the original. We have our background. So we have our tower. We have our flame, our exhaust, our shuttle, and a little light post over there, just hanging out. All right, so I like to arrange my layers in the order that they appear in three-dimensional space. So light post is in front of the exhaust. The shuttle is behind the exhaust. Flame is behind the shuttle. All right, and then we got the tower behind it and in the background. And we can just go ahead and delete our original. So first thing I want to do is turn this into an actual video size. So we're going to do 1920 by 1080. And we're going to make this 10 seconds long. Hit OK. All right, so now we have this. All right, so we're going to start off by turning our background into a 3D layer. If you don't see this little setup right here, you can hit toggle switches or modes, or you can hit F4 on the keyboard. So we're going to click on the little box here, turn it into a three-dimensional object. If you don't see any of your gizmos, what you can do here, Shift Command H will bring them up. So you can hide like overlays and gizmos, and this is a gizmo, by the way, that little thingy. All right, so we got a background. So we're going to hit P on the keyboard. So we want to push this back pretty far in Z space. So we have X, Y, Z. Z is depth here. So we're going to click and drag this to the right. And what we can do is also hold down Shift. And that will allow you to move things at a quicker pace. So we want to go about 5,000-ish. And then we're going to scale it up so that it fits back into our frame. Like so. There we go. And then what we can do is just, move it into place, something like that. All right, so our tower is going to be slightly in front of that. So what we want to do, turn it into a 3D layer. And if you forget what you put for the position, which was 5,000, you can just hit P to bring that back up. All right, so we're going to push this back to maybe about like 500. Something like that. And then we can scale it up. So it's about where it was before. Now our flame and our shuttle, we're not going to move anywhere in Z space. First thing we're going to do is select our flame and hit Y to bring up the pan behind tool. And we're going to click on a little crosshair right here and hold down Command or Alt if you're on Windows, I believe. Not really sure. And we're going to just drag it down to this bottom point right in the center, and it will snap right to it. So what we can do is take our shuttle and our flame, turn them into 3D layers, and then select just the shuttle, hit V on the keyboard to bring back up the move tool, and we're going to pull this down to about there. And we're going to take our flame, we're going to hit S, and we're going to unlink these dimensions. And we're going to scale it down in the Y-axis, or the height. So we're going to scale it down till it's in the position that it was originally. Come on. Doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. That's about right. All right, so our exhaust, turn that into a 3D layer. Hit P. And we're going to slide this to the left in the Z-axis to move it forward. We'll do about 300. Hit S on the keyboard to scale it down to about its original size. Move down the tower a bit. We're getting a little, I don't know why I'm so far zoomed out. Move our tower a little bit there. All right, and then we want to turn our lamp post into a 3D layer. We're going to hit P. So we made the exhaust at about 500, so we'll take this to maybe 700. So, or negative 700. Or 825, whatever you land on, really. It's not that important. It won't be in the shot that long. Just make sure it's before your exhaust. So we're going to move this into place, hit S, scale it down. All right. Just move it to wherever you want it. And there's fine. All right, so we have our 3D all set up here. So if we go to custom view 1 here, you can see what's going on. Got a background, tower, shuttle, exhaust, lamppost. So yeah, there's our scene all set up. Let's switch this back to active camera. All right, so now we want to actually create a camera. Right click here, go to new, camera. All right, we're going to make sure this is set to 50 millimeters and click OK. And then what we're also going to do is create a null object. So new, null object. We're going to turn this into a 3D layer, and we're going to take this pick whip over here, this little guy, and we're going to connect it to the null. That's just something I like to do personally, is just use a null for position, rotation, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it just makes things easier. So we're going to change this to camera movement. So now as you can see, let me just turn this down because I know my computer's going to be like, I don't wanna. So you can see as we move our null, the camera moves with it. We can rotate it if we want. Obviously, at a certain point, the illusion is ruined. All right. So we're going to move back to our original position here. And we're going to think about what kind of camera movement we want. So maybe we want to start it in a little bit tighter and pull back and maybe go up. So we're going to do that. So we're going to hit P and we're going to click on the position. We're going to bring it in. So push it in on Z. And maybe move our shuttle down a little bit more. And of course, we have to scale our flame even further to get it to match. There we go. So now we have our camera movement, or our first position for our camera. We go to the end, and we want to pull this out, maybe set it to 0. And we want to move it up. So something like that. There we go. So now we want to take our shuttle. We did not keyframe the position. So we're going to open up the position on our shuttle and the scale on our flame. And we're going to keyframe both of those. I'll move to the end here. Take our shuttle and move it up. And then we can take our flame and scale it up till it matches. So now we have our camera movement. That's pretty much it for this one. One thing we can do to add a little extra little sweetener on top is to give movement to the flames. So let's do that. So we're going to go over to Effects and Presets, and we're going to type in Turbulent Displace. It's under Distort, Turbulent Displace. Put that on our flame. We're going to set the displacement type to be Twist Smoother, and we're going to turn down the scale to about 24, 25-ish. And we're going to bump up the mount just a little bit. And maybe turn up the complexity just slightly. The only thing that we're going to do here is go to the beginning. And we're going to click on the stopwatch for offset turbulence. And then go to the end here. And we're going to have it moving downwards. So bring it to the right, maybe like that. There we go. And just like that, we have this really cool motion. It looks pretty realistic, I'm going to say. We'll go with that. All right, so there we have that. All right, so that was the first one. Now we're going to move on to our second one. Little space bubble over here. I know it's not a bubble, it's a water droplet. Technically. All right, so this one just has 2 layers. This is actually a really simple technique that doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of effort at all, really. So we have 2 layers here. We have our background and one called Levels 1, because that's just what it was named when it was exported from Photoshop. It's a very beautiful piece of artwork painted in Photoshop. And what this is going to do is going to act as a mat that we're going to use to displace this image. So we're going to start off by creating a displacement map. Displacement map under Distort. We're going to add that to our background layer, and we're going to set the displacement map to levels 1. And we're going to turn both of these to luminance. All right, now we got this really weird looking thing going on here. All right, set this back to 0. So we can kind of doctor up our levels here. First thing we can do is add a curves. There we are. Maybe add a little S-curve, get a little more contrast going in there. Although it is tough to improve on this. Beautiful image here. I mean, I think, you know, all of them, you know, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, I think they would be very jealous, if I'm honest, you know. All right, so we're going to add a fast box blur. All right, so we're going to add our fast box blur. All right, and we're just going to bump up the radius a little bit. Click on repeat edge pixels. Just to get a little softness going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our levels, and we're going to hit Shift Command C to pre-compose that. And we're going to call this disp map. Make sure move all attributes into new composition is selected and hit OK. Now over here, this automatically changed to read from the displacement map. So we're good on that. So what we can do is just poke out its little eye. So for the camera movement for this, I think just a horizontal little tracking shot should suffice. All right. So disclaimer about this method, it's very limited to what you can do. So you see, if you get to a certain point, everything starts looking a little weird. All right, so what I'm looking for is this bubble right here, the edge of the bubble. Once it starts kind of stretching like that, you've gone too far. So yeah, something like that is fine. And we're going to click on the stopwatch over here. And we're going to go to the end. We're going to go to, I don't know, like 7 seconds. And we're going to hit N on the keyboard just to shorten the composition. Because you're so limited to more subtle movements, if you spread that over, you know, the amount of the composition, you won't even notice that anything has happened. So anyway, so what we're going to do is get rid of the negative in front of 67 here at 7 seconds. To have that, even that, you know, might be too slow. We can hit U on the keyboards to bring up our displacement keyframes here. Maybe move that to 4 seconds. Hit N, shorten that comp. There you go. Now you can see what's happening. So you get this illusion of a three-dimensional camera movement. And that's it. That's it for that one. So the final one that we're going to do is the on the moon comp. And so we're going to open that up. Here's our layers. Like we did with the shuttle launch, we can just get rid of the original and get rid of Stanley Kubrick here. Can't have him in the shot ruining things. We have our stars. We have our background. All right. Then we have our foreground. We have our lander. We have our thingy. We got our flag and our knot. All right. So order of appearance in 3D space. Flag goes above the knot. Everything else is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our foreground here. And we're going to hit Y on the keyboard. Shift Command H to bring up our doohickeys. Click on the crosshair, Command, snap it right to that point. All right, so now we're going to turn it into a 3D layer. We're going to hit R on the keyboard, and we're going to rotate this in the X rotation. So negative pulls it out forward towards us, so -90. All right, and what we want to do is hit S and unlink our dimensions and scale it up on Y until it reaches the edge here. All right, so next thing we want to do is we want to add a effect called CC Power Pin. So it's under Distort, CC Power Pin. Add that onto our foreground. So we have these little points that we can adjust right here, and you can see what that's doing to our image. It's kind of stretching it or unstretching it. So what we want to do is hit Shift and click on the horizontal axis, or move it along the horizontal. You can get it as close as you can. I mean, from this distance, it's going to be pretty hard to line it up. Perfect right angles. So we're going to take the other side, and we're going to move that in. Like so. All right. And there we have it. All right, so in this view, it looks fine. It looks, basically matching with the original. Whoop, turn that back on. Now, if we go into our custom view over here, so this is what our layer looks like. All right, so let's switch this back to active camera. And we're going to make the stars a 3D object here. Hit P, and we're going to bring that way, way back to like 10,000. Something like that. Hit S on the keyboard to scale it up. Background, 3D layer, and we're going to leave that. So actually just, boom, 3D layer, all of them. So we want to move our lander. And the easiest way to do that, if we turn off our foreground here, you can see where it lines up on the original image, right at these shadows. So if you go over to two views, right here, you can set this one to be the active camera, and this one to be custom view. Here we go. Oop, turn our foreground back on. Hey, look, there's the shadows that we need to line it with. So what we can do is hit V on the keyboard, and we can move this forward right till it lines up with the shadows. All right, hit S to scale it down. Now, if you notice right here, it's getting cut off at the bottom. That's a pretty easy fix. All we have to do is go New, Adjustment Layer, and we want to pop that down underneath or between the lander and the foreground. That's just an After Effects quirk when you're working with 3D. So if you ever have that where it's cutting off, just add an adjustment layer in between. All right, and that actually fixed our thingy and our knot and our flag as well. But all right. So next we want to move our thingy, and our thingy is in the shadow here, slightly behind the lander. Let's zoom out, pull back here. So we got our thingy. Press the V key to bring up the move tool, and we're going to move that to right about there. Maybe in the shadow more. Hit S, scale it down, and of course when it's at its original size, it will be the width of this image. All right, so now our naught, that's John Young over here. I'm going to push him forward. And originally he's about lined up with this little thing, which is right over here. So we're going to pull him forward till about there. Hit S on the keyboard. I don't know why I say on the keyboard all the time. It's like, is there any other S you can hit that's not on the keyboard? So now he's in his original position and scale. Now we move on to our flag. And our flag, this is a little difficult to get it to line up, I found. So you have this shadow here of the flagpole. But it's not really, you can't really see it in this view. It's a little difficult to see. I think that's it right there. I think. All right, so we select our flag and move it forward to about, hit S on the keyboard, scale it down, moment of truth, scale it to the original size. Move that over, so right there. That's a tough one. The flag was really tough because the shadow's not that apparent. All right. So now we're going to switch back to one view. Switch this to active camera. All right, so we're going to create our camera. 50 millimeters. And we're going to create our null object, turn that into a 3D dimensional object, and connect our camera to the null. Change this to camera. Change that to camera movement. And for this one, I think I'm going to have the camera moving in and maybe rotating a little bit. So we're going to go to our beginning here. Change the composition time to be 10 seconds. There we go. Hit enter. All right, so we're at the beginning here. Hit P on the keyboard for position under camera movement, and we're going to move it forwards, and we're going to zoom in or come in to about there. All right. So maybe go to hit R on the keyboard, and we're going to rotate it in a Y. Whoop. All right, go to Y, keyframe right at the beginning. We're going to go to the end, and maybe, wow, it's so, there we go, a 1 degree turn. Maybe try 1.5. There we go. We can actually move the null over a little bit. And you can see we're starting to cut off the background here. So we can just scale that up. Oop, not that background. The stars. Scale up the stars. Here we go. There we go. All right, so that's our camera movement taken care of. All right, so let's think about the motion that we want to create here. We have our astronaut who is in the middle of jumping and saluting. So what we can do is go to the beginning here, take our knot, hit P on the keyboard, and we can animate the position. So he starts off here, and maybe, he moves up a bit, maybe to the right. like so. And then we can actually move him forward a little bit too. Forward. Like not too much, but just enough to let you know that he's jumping forward as well. All right, so now we get into the really detailed animation here. So he's gonna be moving. His legs are gonna be moving and his arms are gonna be moving. So what we can do is go over to our puppet pin tool here. Zoom in a little bit. Get our guy all lined up. And we're gonna add some pins right in his foot. Right at the knee. And then at the hip. And we go for the other leg. All right, and one at the shoulder here, one around where the elbow is, and one on his hand. Now, this pack here, it's a solid object that doesn't really move. So what we can do is create pins on the corners here, and maybe a few for his face or his helmet. Maybe one on this elbow right here. One at this shoulder. And yeah, that should be good. So what we can do is go to the end frame here. And we can just start moving them. They're automatically keyframed when you create them, so you don't need to actually keyframe this. So we're going to move our leg like so. Move it into position. Oh yeah, and for this one, I had to create another point. So we can move that over like so. Go to the beginning because now it's going to be, he's going to have deer legs. We don't want that. So let's move this back into position right here. So as he's jumping, his legs are moving further up. So we can select all three of these and maybe move it up a little bit more. And then we can move this leg over. And you can just mess around with the keyframe or the bits here. So we're gonna pull this arm up like so. Maybe bring up this. And lastly, maybe bring up the elbow a bit. Like he's saluting. It could be kind of difficult to make this look good. The best thing I can say is just play around with all these little points, moving them. All right, so you get the idea here. So now as he jumps, he's also moving his leg and his arms like it would in real life. All right, one final thing we can do here to finish this up. Actually, a couple final things we can do. We can open up the position for our camera movement, and we can alt-click on the stopwatch, and we can type in wiggle. Maybe do something like 0.3, comma 20. There we go. All right. So 0.3 times a second, it will move in 20 increments of 20 randomly. All right, so when we play this back, we can see everything we've done so far. All right, another thing we can do, hit double tap A here under our camera and go to the beginning, and we can set the depth of field to be on. And then we can click on the stopwatch for focus distance. Actually, we can turn up the aperture a bit so we can see what we're doing. As you can see, the background is now in focus while the rest is out of focus. Now, an easy way to get things to focus is to just move to two views. All right, switch this panel over here to top view. And you see right over here, there's this pink line. That's the focus plane. So what we want to do is we want to start the focus on John Young and then move to the flag. So what we can do is take that pink line there, move the focus distance in. Again, you can hit shift to move that quicker. And I think John's that guy right there. Yep, there we go. And we can bring it right to where this layer appears. And we already keyframed it, so we're at the beginning here. And let's say maybe at 3 seconds, we still want it to be focused on John. It is not, so move that back. All right, and then let's say maybe 7.5 seconds. Move that back down to the flag, which is this first purple line right here. And now that's lined up. And we can go to the end frame where it's still moving. And move the focus distance till it lines up with the flag. All right, and we're going to switch the iris shape from fast rectangle to octagon. That'll give you just like a nicer blur. All right, so that's our third example. And we are all finished here. If you saw the promo for this episode, you would have seen this, which basically this one was done the same exact way as the On the Moon comp. So what I did with this one was, move the layers into a 3-dimensional space, move the camera, and use the puppet tool. And I used it on this thing to give it that swinging action. All right, so I hope you found that all useful. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Hopefully you learned a lot about, the way to approach each individual scene that you're going to be creating. Most likely, each one is going to be different. And of course, there are many, many other techniques that can be done to this. And there will be future videos. More specifically, maybe one that will show you how to actually cut out your images and fix them up to bring them into After Effects to create this. That's definitely going to be coming up in the future. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.